She pointed her finger right in my face and said, "That's my seat. Move now." Everyone on the plane turned their heads. I was sitting in the first-class aisle, ticket in hand, and this woman, perfectly groomed, smug smile, was acting like she owned the entire cabin. The flight attendant looked nervous as Karen kept raising her voice. "I don't care what's on your ticket. You don't belong here." Her words cut through the silence, and a few passengers whispered under their breath. I didn't respond right away, just stared at her, calm but firm. My wife squeezed my arm, whispering, Don't let her embarrass you like this." But Karen didn't stop. She shoved her fake boarding pass toward the attendant and barked, "Check it again. This man is stealing my seat." The flight attendant hesitated, clearly confused, until Karen added with fake authority, "I'm part of the HOA Aviation Committee. I'll have him reported." That line made the whole row chuckle, but she doubled down, snapping her fingers like she was giving orders. I leaned back slowly, letting her bury herself deeper, and finally spoke. "Ma'am, you really don't want to push this." My tone made her flinch, but she quickly hit it with a loud laugh. "What are you gonna do? Call the captain?" She sneered. She didn't know. I actually could. The man she was mocking wasn't just another passenger. Hidden behind my calm face was 20 years of federal service, with clearance that could ground this flight in seconds. And while she tried to wave her fake authority around, I carried something she couldn't imagine. A federal badge in my jacket pocket, marked with 3 letters she'd soon regret hearing, FAA. Her smirk widened and she turned to the people watching. "See? He's scared. He knows he doesn't belong here." But I just smiled to myself, because the moment she thought she had won was the moment I was about to flip her entire world upside down. The flight attendant finally asked Karen to show her boarding pass properly. She pulled out a wrinkled economy ticket, then quickly hid it again, trying to cover her lie. "That's not your seat, ma'am," the attendant said carefully. But Karen wasn't backing down. She raised her voice so loud that even the pilots probably heard it. "I paid for first class. This man is a fraud, and if you don't remove him, I'll have the airline fined." Her fake authority made a few passengers roll their eyes, but some were starting to look worried. That's exactly what she wanted, fear and confusion. Then she crossed the line. She leaned over my shoulder, nearly in my face, and hissed, "You're nobody. Get back to economy where you belong." My wife gasped, but I stayed quiet, staring straight ahead. I knew what was about to happen. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Karen didn't notice. She kept ranting, telling the whole cabin she was part of the aviation board, and she could report violations. The flight attendant. "Try it again, ma'am. Please take your assigned seat." But Karen snapped, "Don't tell me what to do. I know the law better than anyone on this plane." I finally turned and spoke low so only she could hear. "You're right. This is about the law." I let that hang in the air, then reached into my jacket pocket. Her eyes followed my hand as I slowly pulled out a black leather wallet, flipped it open, and showed her the silver badge inside. Federal Aviation Administration. Senior Inspector. The cabin went silent. Karen's face drained of color. Her lips trembled, but she tried to laugh it off. That's fake. He's pretending," she shouted, but her voice cracked. A man across the aisle spoke up. "Lady, I work TSA. That badge is real." Another passenger pulled out his phone to film. The whole cabin shifted. The villain who thought she had all the power was suddenly trapped, and Karen had no idea. I hadn't even shown her the worst of it yet. Karen's hands shook as she tried to hold her ground. "He's impersonating. Arrest him," she screamed, pointing right at me. The flight attendant's eyes widened. She didn't know whether to call security or calm the passengers, but the crowd wasn't buying Karen's performance anymore. Phones were out, recording every second. A man from the back shouted, "Lady, sit down before you get yourself dragged off this plane." The tension rose so high that even my wife whispered, "Maybe end this now." But I wasn't ready. Karen doubled down, marching to the front of the cabin and hammering on the cockpit door. "Captain, this man is a fake inspector. He's threatening me." That was it, the ultimate violation. You don't pound on a cockpit door in the United States. Not after 9/11. Passengers gasped, and the flight attendant moved quickly, pulling her back. Karen tried to push her away, screaming, "I have the right. I'll shut this flight down myself." That's when I stood, calm, controlled, but unshakable. I raised my badge high so every camera caught it. Ma'am, you just interfered with the operation of an aircraft. That's a federal offense. You're not going anywhere but cuffs when we land. Murmurs spread through the cabin like fire. Karen froze, her bravado breaking for the first time. She whispered, You can't do that. But the crack in her voice told everyone she knew she was finished. The flight attendant, now visibly relieved, looked at me. Sir, do you want us to notify the captain? I nodded once. Yes, log it officially. I'll be filing the report myself. That single sentence hit harder than any scream. Karen could throw. She wasn't facing some random passenger anymore. She was facing the law itself. But what Karen didn't know was that I already had her entire scam on record. The fake ticket, the threats, the assault on the cockpit, every second captured. And once we landed, her humiliation wouldn't just be in front of this cabin. It would go public. Karen slumped back into her seat, but her mouth still wouldn't stop. She hissed loud enough for half the cabin to hear. You think you're smart? I'll sue you. I'll sue this whole airline. My brother's a lawyer. A few passengers laughed under their breath, one even muttering, Yeah, sure he is. Her fake confidence was slipping, but she tried to wear it like armor. The captain's voice suddenly came over the speaker, calm but sharp. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been informed of a serious incident. Please remain seated. Law enforcement will meet this flight upon arrival. Every head turned toward Karen. Her face turned bright red, and she shook her head violently. No, he's lying! I was the victim here. She pointed at me again, but nobody believed her anymore. Phones kept filming, capturing her every frantic excuse. I leaned toward her, voice steady. You should know something, ma'am. This isn't your first report. We track repeat offenders. And guess whose name popped up last month for creating a disturbance on another airline? Her eyes widened in pure panic. You can't have that, she whispered. But I did. I had access to federal databases she couldn't even imagine. She wasn't dealing with some random stranger. She was dealing with someone who already knew her entire history of lies. The cabin buzzed with whispers. Passengers shook their heads, some even clapped quietly, as if justice was already happening. My wife leaned closer and said softly, She's finished. But I knew this wasn't just about her humiliation. It was about what came next, the landing. Because when the wheels touched down, Karen wasn't walking off this plane freely. She'd be walking straight into a wall of uniforms and flashing lights. And in that moment, she finally realized her fake power was about to collide head-on with real authority. The plane touched down with a heavy thud, and the cabin filled with the sound of passengers unbuckling. But nobody rushed to leave. Everyone was waiting for her. Karen sat stiff in her seat, clutching her fake ticket like it was a shield. Her voice had gone quiet now, nothing like the woman who had screamed at me minutes earlier. She kept muttering, They won't do anything. They can't, but her hands shook too much to hide. Then the doors opened. 2 uniformed airport police officers stepped on board, followed by a TSA supervisor. The flight attendant pointed straight at Karen. That's her. Gasps and murmurs rippled as the officers moved. Down the aisle, Karen jumped up, waving her ticket. No, he's the criminal! He lied about being FAA. But before she could spin her story again, I stood calm as ever and held out my badge. Senior FAA Inspector. Full report filed. You'll find the footage on my phone, along with half this cabin's videos. The TSA supervisor glanced at my badge, then nodded firmly. Understood, sir. We'll take it from here. Karen's face twisted, in horror as the officers pulled her hands behind her back. This is illegal. You can't arrest me for a misunderstanding, she cried, but the officer's reply cut her short. You interfered with flight operations. That's federal. You're coming with us. The cabin erupted in applause. Some passengers even shouted, Justice, and about time. As Karen was walked down the aisle, her head ducked but cameras flashing from every direction, my wife exhaled, finally smiling and whispered, She picked the wrong man this time. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, watching Karen disappear into the hands of real authority. Before stepping off, I looked at the officer and said, Make sure it's logged under aviation security violations. People like her. They don't just cause scenes. They put lives at risk, he nodded. As I walked out of the plane, passengers kept thanking me, shaking my hand. And I left them with one line that carried weight beyond that cabin. I don't protect these skies so people like her can think they own them.